Welcome to the Goose Fun channel. This is episode 2 of my free random game review series. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the link to the first episode will be in the description below. Just to recap, what I do here is basically review free random games I find on itch.io. It's a pretty simple concept, let's just get started. Resurgent is a short narrative experience with post-apocalypse and zombies. It has pixelated 8-bit graphics with a stylized brown color palette. Like I said, it's mostly an experience, not as much a game due to the lack of actual gameplay. There is some gameplay, however, like a few puzzle sections where you have to time getting on a ladder with whether a zombie is looking your way or not. But the story is most definitely the focus of the game. And about that story, the story itself really isn't super unique or anything. The world has gone to shit, there are now zombies, and our MC wants to get to a safe place as to, not die. Even the twist at the end where, spoiler alert, our MC is actually infected, and he turns into a zombie just as he reaches his goal, which has been done many times before. That's not to say it's bad, however. What this game does really well is telling its story through its world and its only character. Most of the world building is told through old newspapers and the MC's thoughts upon finding things. The game also does a pretty good job at making the player feel isolated and alone, which makes the admittedly mediocre plot a bit less important, I guess. Overall, it's pretty good, and I genuinely think developer Tristan Harris has a pretty good knack for this kind of environmental storytelling. But it just doesn't have that much to its bones, which is why I'd have to give it a 7 out of 10. Glitch Hikers is another short narrative experience, this time about the almost surreal feeling of a lone car ride late at night. It's got pretty standard visuals for a game like this, with edgy polygonal shapes riddling every surface. It fits in with almost any other indie game you can find on itch.io. Similar to Resurgent, Glitch Hikers doesn't have much gameplay to speak of. You're shown the small amount of controls you do get in the first few moments of the game and are then let loose into the experience. And I really think experience is the best way to describe Glitch Hikers. While Resurgent was mainly focused on telling a straightforward plot, Glitch Hikers is much less about its exact events and a lot more loose. The focus is mainly on the themes and philosophical questions that it raises. It starts you off with some softball questions like why are you driving, which could possibly be taken as why exactly are you playing this, but after some time the game comes with some more introspective questions. And it's fascinating, because the game definitely made me think more about some of this stuff. Overall, it just felt like an experience guiding the player along some introspective questions, much less a narrative. And it's helped by the sound design. The soundtrack, while not exceptional, fulfills its purpose amazingly well, immersing the player into its world by way of background noise. There are a few standout tracks like Turtles All the Way Down that really caught my ear on my first playthrough, but it's just an amazingly consistent soundtrack. All in all, I'd have to give this game a 9 out of 10. It's one of my favorite games I've played in general recently, despite, or maybe due to, its short length. For the final game of the video, we have Who the Fuck, another narrative game, I know. I want to preface this by saying this is probably my least favorite of these 3 games. All in all, it has an interesting premise, being based on a Faroese folklore called the Who the Fuck, and it builds up tension pretty well, but there are just a few things in the game that personally just make it fall flat on its face in the funniest way possible. First, let's talk about the texture warping. For those that don't know, Who the Fuck is trying, like a lot of indie games nowadays are doing, to replicate the PSX style of graphics, and a lot of them succeed pretty well. Just type PSX into the itch.io search bar and you'll find a whole treasure trove of them. And to a certain extent, Who the Fuck succeeds in this as well, except in the way that it replicates the texture warping that PSX games had. The game goes incredibly overboard with it, to the point that walking up to a door ends up with you seeing the texture on the other side of the door. This happens everywhere, to the point that it breaks my immersion so much that any and all tension it tries to build up just falls flat. Then there's the matter of the ending. Spoiler alert, after our MC decides to ignore the warnings about the hidden elf people that will murder him, he goes to the place where the hidden elf people are to work and gets murdered. Surprise! Ignoring the fact that it was obvious that the MC's doubts were about to be shattered throughout the entire 10-minute runtime of the game, the eventual payoff falls really flat. After our MC gets knocked out by the Who the Fuck and gets dragged into the cave, I was expecting a cut to black and a credit sequence. Instead, we cut to a scene of our MC hung up against the cave wall as the Who the Fuck kill him by throwing rocks at him. Any and all scariness factors stemming from what the Who the Fuck might be doing to him that we don't know about immediately dissolves, and I literally laughed out loud when I saw this scene for the first time. At the end of the day though, I can't hate this game. It has its charm and it's obvious that love was put into it. I just can't take it seriously. A 6.5 out of 10 for Who the Fuck. that was episode 2 of Free Random Game Reviews. I have to say, pretty successful episode. 2 great games, 1 less so, but still not a chore to get through or anything. All in all, I enjoyed all of these games, and that's what matters, right? Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video.
Distrust the mattress that smells the way it feels.